Well, hello and welcome to the latest in our Smart Seniors podcast series. My name is Jason Neiman from Good Brain Company, and we are delighted today to have three wonderful guests from, believe it or not, all of our guests today are from North Carolina, different communities in North Carolina. And we're so excited to represent North Carolina so heavily today. It's actually kind of nice, right? It's a good thing. So one of the things we're going to talk about today, and the main point, is choosing the right community for you. And, when we thought about this topic, we really felt like making the decision. We've talked about how it affects your family. We've talked about, and really now it's getting down to the nitty gritty of what does it take to choose a community? What does it mean to you to do that? What are some of the things that you've gone through? And so we've got our three lovely panelists here that we're going to ask some questions about in that particular realm. And so I'd like to, first of all, have everybody introduce themselves. I could try to do it, but I probably do a terrible job. So let's start with ladies first. Mary McClurkin. Mary McClurkin is from Gibbons Estates.
Correct. You want me to tell you something about myself?
Yes, please. Give us a little background.
I moved to North Carolina about 40 years ago because I wanted to live in the mountains. And about 30 years ago, I decided that I would move to Asheville and went to a church that was heavily supportive of Gibbons Estates. And it was the only community I even considered.
Wow.
And it has far more than I ever expected. It's
Wonderful.
a perfect setting for me. I have a little brick house with a yard, which I also wanted, and I have nothing to complain about.
Thank you, Mary. Well, we should just go ahead and tell everybody, well, Mary made one choice. It was the right choice and it's done. So if you want to leave, you can leave now. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. Okay. I'm just kidding. Okay, let's go to Bill. Bill Losey from the Forest of
Durham, North Carolina.
All right.
I am a New Yorker. I attended Duke in 1954, served in the Marine Corps in 1959 and 60, in the advertising business in New York City from 1960 until 1989, when my late wife and I moved to Durham. As far as a CCRC is concerned, we only chose one, and that was the Forest at Duke, where I'm residing right now. There are people here at the Forest who I've known longer than the 57 years my wife and I were married, namely my fraternity advisor, Bill Griffith. And the Forest is wonderfully friendly. We're here in Durham because certainly you've got world-class medical care. 2 months ago today, I had a major spinal fusion, and I'm up and running thanks to the major, wonderful surgeons at Duke University.
Wow. Great place to be, obviously. Thank you for sharing. And Ron Hartman from Salem Town in Winston-Salem.
Yes, I'm Ron Hartman. I was born in North Carolina and raised in Winston-Salem. In '69, I joined the Navy, spent 26 years and moved all over the world, all over the United States. And I always was saying that I didn't know where I was going to end up, but it wasn't going to be back in North Carolina. I retired from San Francisco area, was moving to San Antonio, Texas, came here to visit my relatives and the springtime, and so I went back to San Antonio and moved everything back up here. And it's just a great place to be, and all the seasons and everything. And so I retired in '95. About 5 years ago, some friends, we were talking, and they brought up CCRCs, and so we decided to go touring. And over the years, we toured 10 in the central North Carolina area, and went through a decision process myself and spreadsheets, and I research everything, and Salem Town ended at the top of my list, and so here I am.
Great. Thank you for sharing. We've actually had two people now refer to CCRCs. And for those of you watching that don't know what that means, it's actually a moniker for continuing care retirement communities. So you can go through the entire system from independent living and active lifestyle to assisted living if you need some assistance, to skilled nursing if you need a little bit more healthcare action, and then all the way up through memory care. So that's sort of what that is. And then also it's now also referred to as a life plan community in some circles as well. So a little bit of background for the people watching. All right, so I'm going to start with Ron. Since we made you last on the introduction schedule, I'm going to ask you a question first. What prompted you to start looking at communities? What gave you that sort of, here's where I'm at in life, and this is really what started the background?
I'm single, no kids, so I've got family here. I got two sisters, so I didn't want to be a burden on them, and that was always on my mind all through the years. I was considering, retirement centers all along, but then, like I said, about 5 years ago, some friends mentioned it, and so we started touring. And the more I saw the variety of things, what was offered, and I sort of just knew that was going to be what I was going to do, and then it was just a matter of selecting the right one for me.
Great. And how about you, Mary?
I had a similar situation in that I had spinal fusion surgery in 2011, and I had a decent recovery, but then I had a fall, had to have another surgery, and I realized I was not invincible and that I could not live alone the rest of my life. Givens offers everything I need. I feel that and I also have a brother and some cousins, and that's the extent of my family. And again, I didn't want to be responsible. I didn't want anybody to be responsible for me. I wanted to not be a burden to anyone at all. So this was a perfect place. And it is, I moved probably maybe even a year before I thought I was ready, but the place I wanted to live came available, and there are not very many of them, and I decided I would take that opportunity. That and the real estate market was really high, and so it was a good opportunity to sell my house as well.
Great. And how about you, Bill? What prompted you to start looking?
For starters, I'm a different situation. I was married. I have 3 children. We did not want to be a burden to them. They live in Fairfax, Virginia, Midlothian, Virginia, and Wilmington, North Carolina. And I've got 8 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren, which probably makes me a ton of years older than you all are.
Thank you so much.
The main reason is we did not want to be a burden to our kids, and they all approved of it. And we knew so many people here. It was really a very seamless move from North Durham to 9 or 10 miles away to the forest at Duke.
Great. I'm going to start again with Ron, and purposefully, I'm going to ask you the next question. What resources did you use to locate communities and to get some reviews and feedback on those communities? What are some of the things you looked into when you were starting your search?
The first thing was we started visiting, and the Salem Town was the first one we visited, and you didn't know what to expect, what to ask, what was going on. So as you toured the facility and then you went to the next one, then you started comparing those in your mind, and then you started seeing about the cost and what it takes to get in and all these things. And so then I started researching. So the internet was my major source. just searched everything you could find about them and cataloging it and putting it all together for me into a spreadsheet where I could compare all the different facilities at each place and staff, just everything. And that helped me to narrow it down. And then for me, one of the major factors too was to be near family. I found out that's a big thing. So that was a major concern for me.
Sounds like you had a amped up, really high profile pros and cons sheet. Right?
Over time, I got the spreadsheet. I can change how many years I lived there, where I live, what I live, how many years in assisted living, get a total readout, what it cost me per month. I nitpick things to death. So.
Wow. Well, obviously when you do that, you feel like you've made the right decision, hopefully at the end of that, because you have done your homework, I'm sure. Let me talk about this, and we'll start with Bill this time. How much does the staff matter? The people that you're meeting in marketing, the leadership team at the community, the people that work in the dining area, everybody that works for the community. How important is that for somebody that's looking at a community?
I think it's very important because certainly the marketing people are the first faces you're going to see when you move in here. And then you go through financial analyses and that sort of thing. But the staff is extremely important, and nothing is worse than a staff member who does not make you feel welcome, like they're doing you a real big favor. That does not happen here at the Forest Institute. The people we live with and work with, from the staff to the residents, are all really, really wonderful and supportive. I certainly saw that when I had my surgery 2 months ago.
Great. How about you, Mary?
I'm sorry, did you call me?
I said, so how about you, Mary? How about you when it comes to the staff?
Oh, the staff is essential. They feel that they are the part of the Gibbons family as well. They're responsive, they're helpful, they're polite, resourceful. I don't have any complaints about them, but I do have an interesting anecdote to tell you about how I learned about Gibbons. I was working as a freelance editor, and a member of my church knew that Gibbons was building a new building and more homes, and I was contracted with to edit the new resident handbook. So I knew more about Gibbons than many other people who had lived here, because I had to edit the entire thing, and I knew times and dates and costs and responsibilities, and everything I saw I liked. So that was my introduction to the place, other than knowing it by reputation.
Wow, that's incredible.
Wow.
What an insight that gives you to a community, even how they speak in writing to a prospect versus just the verbal actions of how a marketing team might interact with you. All right, let's move on. So, and I'm going to go back to Ron for this one. What are some of the other communities? What were some of the other communities like that you looked at?
The way I tell people is that all of them basically offer the same thing. So the thing that makes it different is the environment, the atmosphere, and how you just feel about the place. For me, I've been to brand new ones that just opened. They're super nice, kind of a barren landscape around them though. The more established ones have more established landscaping. They look nicer. One of the things that drew me to Salem town was the Moravian old Salem kind of architecture, and it never gets old. I've been to some that was built in the 80s, and the decor was still the 80s. They still have burnt orange walls and upholstery, and you're going to take a major undertaking to change it all. So that was one of the factors.
And what about you, Bill or Mary? Any thoughts on that of any other places you looked or saw in your time before you made the choice to move to your community?
Well, my late wife and I, Jean, only looked at one place, believe it or not. Maybe I'm a dinosaur, but as I said earlier, it made us feel, the people we knew here made us feel that the move would be very, very seamless. And there are things about healthcare that I like here. It's in terms of accumulated days and that sort of thing that I preferred. And I don't understand it all because I'm not a numbers person. But the healthcare, the way they do it here, was much to our liking.
Mary, any thoughts on that?
I might add that I did not want to leave Asheville because it had been my home for 30 years. And there's several CCRCs here that I looked at, but not very seriously, because I knew them by reputation. I knew them by looking at them, and I knew some of the people who had lived there. And Givens Estates was the one that fulfilled all my needs.
You know, I've had a recent luxury of having both of my children make decisions about a college decision, going into a college. And one of the things that they both said about their school when they went there was it just felt right. Do you feel the same way, Ron, about your community? Was, you know, you walk in the door and it just feels right, feels like the place you're supposed to be?
Yes, that's a big factor. Some places, everywhere was friendly, people friendly, staff friendly, but you just get that feeling as you're there. And some places feel formal, like you kind of get dressed up anytime you walk out in the hallway. And others are laid back and it feels more like a community. And I describe Salem Town as being a Mayberry RFD themed resort.
Cool.
That's great. I'm going to ask you some specifics here, and I'm going to start with Bill. Bill, what were the top two things that really put the Forest of Duke over the top for you? What if we had to really isolate it down and say, I want you to tell me, if these two things didn't happen, what would have kept you from moving there?
Wow. I've got to say, first and foremost was the people that we knew here and the friendly atmosphere. I didn't want to go somewhere where I was a number. And also very, very important is the proximity to the Duke University medical system. Those would be the two things that I had friends who lived, 40 miles in North Carolina from the nearest hospital, and it was a tough road to hoe, and when my friend had cancer and eventually he died of it. But his widow is in a CCRC now, closer to hospitals and things like that, and we lived through their struggles in a sense as we all got older with medical issues.
Understood. And what about you, Mary?
I'm sorry, what question do you want me to answer specifically?
Sorry, what were the top two things that really put your community over the edge of making the decision?
Well, the fact that it is in what I would describe as an urban forest, 215 acres here, most of which is unimproved, and which I believed would stay secure as long as I lived here. And I knew quite a few people here. I had sung in the choir at a church in Asheville for many years, and people from that church continue to move here, and we're happy here. And I've visited some and also talked with them at church as well. And they could not find anything wrong. And that's a difficult thing to achieve.
Sure, of course. How about you, Ron? Two things that put your community over the top?
I think number one was just the feeling of community, and you just felt at home. I mean, it just felt like you could fit in, and wouldn't be a sore thumb sticking out amongst other people. And the other thing is the campus itself, like Mary was saying, a lot of acreage, a lot of woodland trails, and I like to do a lot of walking with the dog, and so I don't have to go very far, just out the door, and we can explore everywhere.
Great. What surprised, and I'll ask, I'll go to Bill on this one. What surprised you most after you moved to your community?
Wow. I think the support that we received first in November of 2016 when my wife died of cancer, and the support that I have received following the surgery. And it's not just superficial support, it's genuine caring for people.
Wow,
Does that
that's
make any
impactful.
sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. And it almost, we go back to that idea of that it feels like family. It feels like you have people around you to surround you with support. I mean, it's an incredible thing that you probably get, but you don't think about that when you go there. But obviously for you, that was a very important piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And Mary, how about you? Anything that surprised you? Now, you wrote the handbook or helped edit the handbook, so
Right.
probably couldn't be surprised too much, but what about anything did surprise you?
That it was so much better than I ever anticipated. That the staff was more supportive, friendlier, even administration. I have walked into the executive director's office unannounced and been welcomed to have a conversation with him. That's not something I would do repeatedly, but there, and other staff members as well. You don't have to have an appointment. If something's troubling you, or you want to brag about something or praise somebody, you're welcome to communicate that. I also was enabled to begin a choir chimes group here because one of the administrators found this old 2-octave choir chime set. We began it. They bought another octave for us. They let me purchase anything I needed, essentially, although I was reasonable. Anything I needed that would support the group, lights and stands and tables. And I felt as if whatever I wanted to do, they would make happen for me.
That's great.
Yes.
So super supportive, both of you, of your needs, your concerns maybe that you might have, and then also for betterment of life and having you promote something new in the community. That's a very big thing. Incredible. What about you, Ron? Anything that surprised you?
One of the things is the technology, how much people understand. I was expecting to come here and maybe if something to do would be to hold classes to teach something people about the internet and this sort of thing. And you come here and you find 90-year-olds sitting in the chair texting away. They end up everyone is technically advanced here. One of the other things that I found about myself is that I've always been kind of a loner, and since I've been here, I'm here doing this. These are things I wouldn't normally have done before, so I found myself coming out and being more open to everyone in the community. So.
Yeah, let's keep going on that. Talk a little bit, Mary, if you wouldn't mind. Talk a little bit about how important the social aspect of living at your community is.
There are so many people who are similar to me in age and interests, and they're welcoming. They welcome new people, and we in turn welcome new people. I joined the Gibbons Choir and was really surprised at how marvelous it was, because we're just a bunch of old folks that don't have the same voices we used to have, but the sound that we create is so positive. The ministerial department is what has supported the music programs here. The surprising thing to me is that almost anything I have asked for, I've either heard of a very good reason that it couldn't be done, or it has been done for me. I feel pretty spoiled.
That's a nice feeling.
Yes, it is.
All right, I'm going to ask the big question here, and the big question is, and maybe we'll start with Bill on this one. Bill, I've told you that I've been in senior living marketing and advertising for quite some time now, and the major thing that is said in all circles at every community, no matter where you go, when you ask a person why they haven't moved into a community yet, their resounding answer is, "I'm just not ready. I'm not ready." So Bill, give me a little bit of background on do you feel like you moved in at the right time? Do you feel like you could have moved in earlier? Do you feel like people wait too long? What are your thoughts on that when it comes to choosing that community?
My former next door neighbor, they said, "Bill, we're going to do what you did. We're not ready yet. When Gus turns 80, then we'll consider it." Well, you don't know where you're going to be at 80 years old. God forbid Gus is walking out to his car, he trips and falls on a leaf or a limb or something, winds up on his back, has a subdural hematoma, and doesn't come out of it. Hey, golly, you can't wait until you're sick or something fails that you decide to move into a place like this. I don't think. So in that regard, I think people just wait a little bit too long and say, "Hey, I'm not vulnerable. I'm gonna live forever," and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Mary, did you want to follow up on that?
Yes. I didn't think I was ready, but it turned out that it was perfect timing. I have a friend who says she's going to move here when she's 84, and she's 76 now, and I don't know how she can anticipate that she will be well enough to make decisions and be able to move herself. I think you have to move when you are fit and able, and to make decisions yourself, and to find yourself as comfortable as possible before you need extra care, assisted living, or skilled nursing. You can't wait until a magic time, because you might not even be around at that time. It's like if ever, and you think you want to do this, you start planning for it.
Great. Ron, I'm going to ask you the same question, but in a slightly different tone. What are the benefits to moving to a community when you're young enough to enjoy it and active enough to enjoy it before you have to start thinking about the times when things aren't so great health-wise?
I think that's one of the big points, especially for me, because I consider that too. Once you get here, you find how much fun it is, and how much more relaxed you are, and all the things you are to do. And for people that wait too long, they wish they had came sooner so they could have been enjoying all these things. Like Mary was saying, you never know what's going to happen, and tomorrow something can happen and you wouldn't qualify to be able to move into one to start with. So
Right.
it's good to get there as soon as you can so you can start enjoying life.
Great. All right. Well, I think we've given some really great background, some really great thoughts for people to think about. Any final thoughts from any of you? Mary, Bill, any thoughts on anything you'd like to share or say before we log off here?
I think I'm good to go.
You go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that moving in when you're active enough, and this is sort of bragging on this person sitting here, but I am a member of the New Resident Orientation Committee. I serve as a mentor and have mentored 6 or 7 couples in the 3 years that I've been here. I serve as chairperson of the marketing committee. It keeps you out of the gin mills and it keeps you healthy and active.
Mary, I don't know how you're going to follow that one, but give it a shot.
I still go to the gin mills. Let me be serious. It's amazing how soon you become oriented and included, and it feels like, why didn't I do this sooner? I think that Gibbons is perfect for me because of location and because I knew it so well. And I'm sure that people that in other CCRCs that are in places that I wouldn't have chosen to move are just as satisfied. It is a case of moving before you have to, so you can become part of the community and contribute to it while you still have most of your faculties. The gin mills take, you can't take care of that, but you ought to be able to enjoy yourself and not just consider I'm going to go there to retire and die.
I'm not sure I could have wrapped that up any better. Well done. Well, I'd like to thank the staff and also Ron from Salem Town. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think you've given a great opportunity for seniors across the country that might be watching this to really give some thought. Bill at the Forest of Duke, I'd like to thank you as well. And of course, Mary at Gibbons Estates, you added the rose to the other 3 thorns here for today. We appreciate you being on with us. So thank you very much for joining us today. This has been an amazing group of people, great insights. We really appreciate it on the Smart Senior Series, and we look forward to our next podcast coming to you very soon. Hope you have a great day, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.